And good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel and coffee stream episode 407. And it's Wednesday, and it is a Wednesdays with Skep day. How are you today, Mr.
I'm
Skeptic?
doing fine. You toss that off. It's 407th episode. 407 streams, 407 hours.
Yep.
You've done this, and I've gotten to participate in a few of them with you, and it's just worth reflecting on that. That's a lot of work and a lot of effort on your part. I sure appreciate you doing that. It's adds to the YouTube pastiche of culture.
Well, and what a fitting segue actually, because today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
Why, whatever does that mean?
So today we talk, people in the accessibility community kind of highlight the, how far accessibility has come, because it has. It really has, in pretty much every field you can think of.
Except Windows.
Except, except Windows. Fuck Windows.
Yeah, really.
Um,
Sorry about
so,
that. I
no
didn't turn
worries.
off my ringer on my phone.
No worries. My phone sometimes does that
No,
too.
this
So,
is. Hang on one second.
no
This is
worries.
my son.
Oh,
I'm
no
going to come
worries.
back
No
in just a
worries.
second.
So Global Accessibility Day is a day where you kind of reflect on what has been made accessible and what still needs to be made accessible. And there are huge, leaps and bounds in the term of access to everything, like literature and just literacy, to, mobility aids, to technology, to even medicine, um, getting into making child safety uh, uh, pill bottles more easy to open for people who have physical disabilities, without mitigating the safety concern of easy open pill bottles. Like, there's just so many different ways accessibility has ballooned, and even the mindset behind accessibility has changed. There's, now it's actually taken into consideration for the most part. Yes, advocates still have to do a lot of push for accessibility inclusion in products like video games, and adding, pushing for audio description in television is still, it's not a second nature thing. It still has to be reminded. But the fact that those things exist is huge. The fact that, despite its drawbacks, and the fact that I hear text to speech unavailable here for most of the menus, the fact that a gaming console even talks is really cool. Like a mainstream gaming console.
How long has that been a thing?
So this happened with the PlayStation 4. So this was at least, 4 or 5 years. And it is a very rudimentary thing. Like, it does, a lot of the menus do say text to speech unavailable, which sucks. But
How
you,
much? How much of it? How much of the capability of the PlayStation does it really make available to you?
this PlayStation, probably about 25%.
Okay, so they
But with the
still have a ways to go.
PlayStation 5,
Yeah.
there are, I've actually heard, my blind friends who have one, they've done videos demonstrating it, and all of the menus talk, like, completely. There is no text to speech unavailable here. Like, my friends can share video clips by themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
can set up streams. They can log into different accounts on their PlayStations. Now they can set up, you know, rooms to do fights in. Like, all of these menus are now opened up in the PlayStation 5.
So that really that must have revolutionized your world.
Oh, for the like the fact that the PlayStation 5 is so expensive really sucks, because
Yeah.
I like to be able to like, cuz right now if I want a video clip shared or edited or anything, right? I
Mhm.
have to ask Pincalo to do it, because nothing is like I can't even really clip a video because it goes text to speech unavailable here, right? And I don't know what I'm doing.
So your problem is getting oriented as to where, you know, what
In the
you're
menu I
looking.
am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, what menu you're in, but also in doing something like editing a video.
Yeah.
You basically have to know where the pointer is, where
Yeah.
what at what point am I in the video? Okay, I want to take the video from here to here and do this and do something with it.
Yeah.
And that's all doable as long as you have sound cues in the video. You can find the parts of the video that you want.
Yeah.
And so, really, what you need are the supporting pieces in the editing part. So, you need menus, menu choices,
Exactly.
and but those aren't fully fleshed out yet, huh?
In the console that I have, no.
And that's because you have the PlayStation 4. But
Yes.
in the PlayStation 5, it's much better.
Yes.
I mean, how much better? Like twice
Like
as good or
like
five times as good?
orders of magnitude.
Oh, like
Like
10 times as good. Okay.
the guys who have PlayStation 5s are like, I don't want to use my PlayStation 4 anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go back. Like,
I'm
that's
I'm
how
s-
they are.
I'm sorry to be so stupid, but I don't even know how much a PlayStation. How much does a PlayStation 5 even cost? I have no idea. Is it $15,000? Is it $20,000?
In Canadian money, the console that we would like, because they've made two. They've made one where it's just for digital versions of the game, right? You buy it online, you download it, it's saved to the hard drive. And they've also made a console where they allowed actual discs for the games. Now, since we own actual discs, we would want the one that allows for that. And
Now,
unfortunately, they've
that's
made
like a
that one,
that's a physical thing,
yeah,
right?
a physical copy of the game.
What what I mean? No. What I mean is the when you say console, you're not talking about a piece of software. You're talking about a piece of hardware
Yes,
that
a
has firmware in
physical,
it and
yeah,
software embedded in it and
yes,
takes the okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Go. Okay.
So the
The one that you
console that
want,
has the disc option
right.
is $630
Shut
Canadian
up.
money.
Shut up. It is not. Is it really?
It is. And because everybody and their dog wants a PlayStation 5, you can only order them online. You cannot go to the store. There are none in any store anywhere. Like, even in the States, people are like, yeah, I can't find a PlayStation 5.
Wow.
It's crazy. Well, when they first came out, tons of people went up and bought tons and tons of them, especially those the big gaming channels went and bought a whole bunch to give away. And kind of fucked the.
Now I'm seeing them for $1,149.
Oh, that's resale. So assholes are going and buying them at the retail
This
price.
is Walmart.
Oh, this is Walmart.
Overstock has it at 927.
Best Buy had it at $629.
Best Buy.
In Best Buy Canada had it at
What
$629.
that's an interesting thing. I wonder if we're seeing inflation. Hang on, Canadian dollar
On
to U.S.
Amazon,
dollars. It's
I saw one for $1,400.
United States dollar is only worth 83 Canadian cents.
Wow, really?
Mm. I mean, I'm sorry. One Canadian dollar equals 83
83
cents US.
US
That's what
cents.
I'm
Okay, I
sorry.
was
I
gonna
had it
say,
backwards.
when did
I had it
that
backwards.
happen?
I had it backwards. Now, okay, so which is about what I was expecting. I'm sorry. I absolutely read that backwards. So 80, so that it's not inflation. Hmm.
No, it's literally assholes overbought them
Or
and
underbought
or
them or
underbought them.
underproduced them. I think this is just market pressure. I
Yeah.
think that this is just uh, I just find this interesting. Uh, geez, and yet I go through and I see now there's something called a digital edition.
That's the one where you do not get to
Only
put
game
the
yourself.
disc
You
in.
can't right, and that's $499
Yeah.
99,
Yeah.
and then but the standard edition is $803. That's from StockX.
Yeah.
Tico by 909. Then strangely, this is a one for $350 standard edition. Looks like that's a resell. And man, it is just amazing all over the place. This thing must be hotter than hot. This is just silly.
That's Pink Hollow did make a good point. He says you can't 100% blame these assholes. There is also a problem in the supply chain. Yes, that is true. There is also a big problem in the supply chain.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. So anyway, yeah, that's it's kind of an interesting deal. Kind of sad, really.
Yeah,
That but
but
it's
then you get
something that will go
into
away.
yeah,
It's a problem that will go away because people. This is not a consumable. This is not like Kleenex,
no,
and where people buy more and more of them. They will buy the uh, demand will be saturated, will be satisfied. I mean, and then you'll be able to get one probably on the cheap because they'll get overbought, and you'll have that kind of overbought situation where people are trying to get rid of them,
yeah.
and you can probably pick one up used. Just thinking out loud here.
And then so we get into even cooler accessibility features that are implemented in even everyday things like Samsung TVs. Did you know we have the most basic Samsung TV? It's not a smart TV, so we cannot tell it to do anything.
Right.
However, it has a screen reader option.
It's isn't that interesting?
Yeah, you can turn on the screen reader and navigate the TV and pick your Netflix shows and your Amazon or whatever you want to watch without without any issues.
I noticed that I have a Samsung TV also, and I noticed that there is an accessibility thing on the menu. I've
Yep.
never gone into that. I will go and check that out. I just want to see what it has in it. Interesting.
Yeah. So
It's not because we don't have a smart TV either.
yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
dumb TV
Dumb TV,
because that's all we
exactly.
can afford. But huh. Well, all right. Outside of electronics, what's happening in accessibility in the celebration of all this accessibility stuff?
Well, it's there are still there are lots of things to be thankful for, and I would like to take this day because a lot of people take this day to shit on what's not made accessible yet,
Yeah.
right? And bitch and moan, right? But when you think about it, disabled people are, especially in developed nations,
Hmm.
right, are living it up right now in
Oh yeah.
comparison to even 30, 40 years ago.
Yep.
And even if you go back to, like, if you take a minute to think about it, blind people have had access to literacy now for almost 200 years.
Yeah, when was Braille?
Braille was invented in, I believe, in the 1830s. I believe Louis Braille is when he invented it.
He lived from 1809 to 1852.
Yeah, and he invented Braille while he was teaching at the school in Paris that he actually went to as a kid. Um, and he invented it while he was teaching and taught it to his students. Um, and so even if you take a look, like, that's technically an accessibility milestone. The access to literacy, the access
Sure.
to knowing how to read and write. Um, and when you put that, you exceed that into areas for people with, like, dyslexia, the advances in helping them learn how to read properly,
Hmm.
the techniques, and, like, all of those things count towards accessibility in my view. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
a lot of advocates in the accessibility world forget all of those things in the rush to shit on the things that aren't accessible yet, which kind of makes me sad because I think this day was kind of made in the spirit of remembering and what we have and celebrating what we have, and it's kind of turned into, like, why don't we have this yet? Do you know what I mean?
A
It's
day to lobby and foment resistance against the Luddites who prevent us from having
yeah,
accessibility to everything.
yeah,
Why aren't blind people flying aircraft?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I just thought I'd take a few minutes to just remember all of the, it's some of the really awesome things that society has given to the disabled people that have made our lives awesome and
Oh
given
yeah.
us access to education and um,
You
just
know, you're talking about accessibility in terms of I want to say cognitive or something, but having to do with being able to perceive things.
yeah.
A different kind of accessibility has come to people who are wheelchair bound.
Oh, absolutely.
And you talk about a changed world when this is one of these Pepperidge Farm remembers moments from Skep Talk. But when I was growing up, curbs were curbs. There was no such thing as a ramp anywhere. There was no accessibility for people in wheelchairs anywhere. If you and they used to call them shut-ins.
Well, and they didn't even have chairs that they could propel themselves. It was somebody has to push me
Absolutely
in my
right.
chair.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was no such thing as a wheelchair lift or wheelchair
Nope.
accessible van or
Stair lift.
stair lift. None of that stuff. That it didn't exist. And if you were confined to a wheelchair and you lived in a two-story house, guess what? You lived downstairs.
Yep.
It was a different world. Nowadays, they can go so many other places, do things. They can drive cars. That was absolutely unthinkable
Yeah.
when I was 10 years old for a person in a wheelchair. No, people in wheelchair don't drive cars. And I remember when that became a thing, when they said they have hand controls. They even had hand controls for the clutch
Mm.
in the standard shift cars. So and they put them on the steering wheel,
Okay.
and it just absolutely changed their world. They could get out and do things, and then there were things like the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
The ADA was It's not a perfect thing, and our compliance with it has not been perfect, but it has generally been a force for good,
It has.
and
Absolutely.
has enriched so many people's lives. And the other thing is that when you allow the contributions of people who are in wheelchairs or people who are blind or deaf or whatever it happens to be have something that makes them different and needs to, and need to have society make a little bit of an investment in them, you get the reward of what they have to contribute to society. Back in the day, when I was growing up, you never saw blind people out.
Mm,
You really didn't. The notion, people knew about uh, people who were blind having canes tapping, away,
yeah.
and so forth, but no one ever saw them because they never went out.
Yep.
And now you see it all the time, and it's wonderful. It's just
Well,
it's a
because
change for the better.
the actual advent of the orientation and mobility system hadn't been thought of. Everyone was like, well, why should we teach blind people how to travel? Like,
Oh yeah.
shouldn't they just be with people all the time? Like,
Oh, that
and
you know
now,
that I remember in 1995, I went out for a training session in Alameda, California, from Texas. And I hadn't been out in Alameda in 10 years, 12 years, so, and I went up to Berkeley to find one of my old haunts to get some decent Indian food, not feather, and came up to a crosswalk, and I heard this chirping sound, this really loud bird chirping sound. And as I was walking across, and I realized the thing was coming from a traffic signal.
yep,
And and when it finished changing, a different bird started chirping in a different voice.
in a
And I
different
went,
direction.
yes, a different from the other side. And I went, what? And come to find out that those are sound cues for visually impaired people
Yep,
to cross the street.
yep. And now up here, I don't know if they do this down in the States, but up here they've started. What they do is they emit a soft, like, beep every half second,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you're coming up to the corner, you can hear the beep, 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 so you can find the button,
That's awesome.
and then you push the button down, and then it will chirp or cuckoo or whatever when it's time to cross the street.
I'm sure there's some Karen in some place. I can't stand that beeping.
Oh, there are tons. It's so loud. There's so much noise pollution from those things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sorry, and the traffic noise isn't noise pollution.
Exactly. Giant diesel bus goes.
Right?
They don't even notice.
Oh my god.
People just want to. They just want to be important. So anyway, all right. So disability thing. Have we done enough on that, or do we need to talk
Yes,
about?
and I also Pincolo actually sent me a story on Monday that I wanted to save till today because it's a study. I know how much you love studies.
Love them. It's my favorite thing.
And it's a study done by some Canadians about Alzheimer's disease and how it could actually be an autoimmune disorder and how we could combat that pharmaceutically instead of doing it the way that we are doing.
Which is just putting them in a room and waiting for them to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're doing with me.
So I'll pull up that story and as we talk and we can go over it.
Is that on your server?
No, it's in my DMs. I'm just pulling it up and I'm going to share the screen.
Okay, cool. So
if Chrome will Chrome properly.
yeah, you know, the Alzheimer's thing has they've been trying to crack that nut for a long time. My mother passed away from Alzheimer's, and it is just a long and sad and painful goodbye.
Yeah.
And after a while, when you're, like when mom stopped responding really in any meaningful way, and it was just a blank stare,
Yeah.
you just, you go, why am I doing this? My dad was actually with her when she died. He was sitting with her. He sat with her by the hour, and
Mm,
she was just, never spoke to him, never did anything. Occasionally would make, kind of a gurgling sound. They come and take care of her.
yeah.
And he said they were sitting together, and all of a sudden she just stopped breathing, and that was it.
Mm,
It's almost like you don't even notice your own death. It's
wow.
it's horrible and strange in a lot of ways. Um,
And
so
this
if they can make progress on this, that would be pretty awesome.
and the sad thing is that it's almost a relief because they're not in a shell anymore. Like they're just not because they weren't them.
Yeah, they're not them, and it's kind of a cruel. The cruelty stops because the the facade, the pretense that this body that used to hold the brain, the mind, the soul of the person you loved
Yeah.
is just, it's just a body now. The soul is gone. The brain is gone. The thoughts are gone. The spirit is gone. It's just the place they used to be. It's like an empty house.
Yeah.
They're not there. And the house can remind you of them, but it's not them.
Yeah.
And
So this says, hold on. A Canadian study fuels theory that Alzheimer's is an autoimmune disorder, opening new treatment options. Using sophisticated lab techniques, the team found strong evidence in Alzheimer's sufferers of several autoantibodies autoantibodies that bind to brain specific proteins. Interesting.
so is this in the global news? Is that where this is?
Yeah.
Okay, so as I look at this, by 2030, it's estimated 1 million Canadians will be diagnosed with dementia. Is that the disease? Is that the one you're talking about? Study you're talking about? Despite decades of research, there's still no cure for
No,
Alzheimer's.
this starts with amid the COVID-19 emergency, it has been easy to forget another looming health crisis. Unchecked by lockdowns or masks, Alzheimer's disease still affects 500,000 Canadians, and is projected to sicken almost twice that many in coming years. And despite numerous attempts at developing drugs to treat the always fatal ailment, no effective therapy has emerged. Let's skip this YouTube video. But a new Canadian study hints at a novel and largely overlooked hypothesis, one that could open up a whole new avenue of pharmaceutical attack if borne out. So this says,
So it says
oh,
Alzheimer's may be at least part an autoimmune disorder, an illness like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, triggered by patients' immune systems turning inward and attacking healthy cells. And that's from researchers at Toronto's Mount Sinai Hospital.
interesting. So
Do you
this,
want me
pardon?
want me to read on in this story?
Sure, you can go ahead and read it. Can you see it?
Yes, I actually called it up
Oh, okay.
myself. Why are they after me today? I go 3 months without getting a phone call, and oh, you're streaming. Yeah, it's time to call Frank. Okay,
quick,
use
quick, call Frank.
Using sophisticated laboratory techniques they developed, the team found strong evidence in Alzheimer's sufferers of several autoantibodies, rogue products of the immune system responsible for such diseases that bind to brain-specific proteins. Okay, let's break that down just for a second. I'm going to go all sanguine on you here for a minute. All right, there are proteins, all through your body,
Yes.
and there are markers on the proteins that make them able to be identified.
Okay.
And some of them are specific to different parts of your bodies, and some of them are specific to your brain, for example. And so they mark those, and they say, okay, are we seeing, what do we notice in Alzheimer's patients? Well, we're seeing some antibodies that we normally associate with stuff like scleroderma or rheumatoid arthritis, or even AIDS. That these are special antibodies that are actually kind of like the detritus of a construction area, like the
Okay.
leftover lumber,
Gotcha.
the sawed off pieces of lumber that they didn't use for the house. It's kind of like that. And these things have sites on them that cause them to bind to certain brain specific proteins, certain proteins that they can mark and look at. And they say, look at the side of that brain specific protein. I know, Mel, it looks odd. Yes, those things on there are autoantibodies. That's weird. This patient doesn't have rheumatoid arthritis. You're right, Mel, but they have Alzheimer's. Dun 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 dun. And so that's what happens. And so that's what they're looking at. I actually find this fascinating because if that's the case, where there are antibodies, there are things that cause antibodies. Where there are things that cause antibodies, you can figure out how to make that stop. And when you do that, you might just nail the mechanism behind Alzheimer's. If that happens, that would be large.
So, and essentially, they would have to reverse engineer where the
Let's
antibodies came
yes,
from.
exactly. All autoimmune disease research is just that. That's exactly what you do. Is you are presented with, here's what's in the blood, figure it out backwards. And how did it get this way? Yeah, that's what you're constantly asking yourself. How did this happen? Well, this other thing must have happened. Well, how did that happen, and why did that happen? When did it happen? How warm was it when it happened? What other chemicals in the blood were present when that happened? What was going on with the patient when that? You just keep asking those questions, keep combining those factors back and back, and you work it back, and you're looking for experiments that you can run to confirm different parts of your hypothesis, and somewhere in that medical research happens. That's literally how they that's how they get the drugs that helped AIDS so much. That's exactly how they did it.
Fascinating, like honestly, that sounds fascinating work.
People ask me why I read that stuff day after day, because I can't stay away from it.
Like, to be a biological reverse engineer, basically, is
that's what microbiologists really and biochemists do. I was fascinated by it enough to effectively take a minor in it in college, and and they're doing that now. So anyway, they go on to say the hallmarks of the disease are amyloid plaque and tangled tau fibers. Okay, tau fibers are little strands of protein, basically protein and amino acids that form on the brain, eventually killing off neurons. Attempts to find treatments that have focused almost exclusively on attacking amyloid and have repeatedly failed. So they said there is definitely a black box in terms of what we should be considering as the next best approach. We need to think outside the box. So what they've been doing is they've been attacking these things, that they find this plaque that they find on the brain, and they're just getting nowhere. So they say we need a better approach.
Yeah.
So the study's results are, quote, very interesting, end quote, and the autoimmune hypothesis, a plausible one that deserves more attention and funding, said neuroscientist Saskia, unpronounceable, chief research officer for the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. In fact, the society has changed its approach to funding dementia science in the last 2 years, directing more dollars to new ideas, high risk, high reward projects that might provide a much needed breakthrough, she said. I think it's time for us to start pushing the envelope and really exploring these new radical ideas, said unpronounceable. The huge investment on one basic approach, she said, has been to our detriment. In a pressing concern with dementia already costing healthcare and the economy more broadly $10.4 billion annually. That's just in Canada. I promise you, it's 10 times that much in the United States.
Yeah.
But unpronounceable said attempts to break new ground are hampered in Canada by government funding of dementia research that lags well behind the other G7 countries. In 2016, for instance, Canada committed barely a fifth of what the UK did, said the Alzheimer's Society. Of course, it's not always dollars, it's results. But anyway, the pharmaceutical industry spent $3.5 billion on it over 4 years up to 2020, with what they described as a 96.6% failure rate, according to a paper last year in the International Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. Meanwhile, there's already evidence of possible autoimmune role in Alzheimer's, notes Roger Unpronounceable, a clinical pathology professor at Weill Cornell Medical College, in an editorial in Canadian paper in the Journal of Applied Laboratory Medicine. Women over 65 are almost twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's and also much more likely to develop known autoimmune diseases. Isn't that interesting? There is evidence of brain inflammation, a product of immune responses in patients, and some studies suggest that the use of anti-inflammatory painkillers reduces the risk of Alzheimer's. So, ibuprofen as an anti-Alzheimer's agent. Interesting idea. A compromised blood-brain barrier, which would normally block those antibodies from affecting the organ, is seen in Alzheimer's sufferers. Indeed, athletes suffering from serious brain injury, which can disrupt the barrier, are more likely to develop the disease. The Toronto team's hypothesis is that autoantibodies cause neuroinflammation and somehow trigger the death of neurons or the destruction of the synapses that connect them, and then the development of the plaque and the tau fibers that they were talking about that characterize Alzheimer's. They looked at samples of the cerebrospinal fluid from Alzheimer's and Parkinson's patients and otherwise healthy people with headaches. In simple terms, they essentially mixed human brain tissue with antibodies extracted from that fluid and used a form of mass spectrometry to analyze the interaction. And here's what they found. They found strong evidence of autoantibodies targeting several brain proteins in the cerebrospinal fluid of Alzheimer's patients, but none in the Parkinson's or headache groups.
Weird.
The team, led by completely unpronounceable, the University of Toronto's head of clinical biochemistry, and including student Brian, also unpronounceable, is now planning a larger scale study to try and confirm their findings and hope other scientists pursue the concept. They also note the autoimmune process is being identified in an increasing number of diseases, and imagine an intriguing future related to that. New technology could let the doctors regularly monitor patients' immune properties and offer personalized medicine to delay or prevent diseases when trouble signs appear. Our immune system is a dynamic system. It's not like we're born with it and die with it. It is much more dynamic than our genetics and is something that we have really not capitalized on. So isn't that, and that's the end of the article. That's so cool. That is absolutely fascinating. Here's the study I want to see. Check this out. Just listen to this for a sec. I have chronic back pain.
Right.
For that chronic back pain, I take an anti-inflammatory called ibuprofen. Okay. Sometimes I take naproxen, which is a leave. It's called, but most often I take Advil, and both are anti-inflammatories. Both have a similar mechanism of action. They're both called non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, but that's a wastebasket group of chemicals. The chemicals themselves are not really very similar, but they have a similar effect. They both affect inflammation. They both reduce inflammation. And naproxen lasts a little longer, but it's less effective. And Advil is more effective, but doesn't last as long. Yeah. So, and I take them for different reasons. I tend to take a leaf to go to sleep, so it lasts all night, and which it doesn't. But anyway, and I take Advil when I'm just having a really bad time, and so forth. But I take them routinely. Wouldn't it be interesting to take a group of back patients and a group of people who don't regularly take ibuprofen and do a longitudinal study, meaning a long-term study of how much anti-inflammatory they took and what their outcomes the outcomes of their life were with respect to Alzheimer's?
That would be interesting.
If you saw a marked decrease in the group who consistently consumed anti-inflammatories, that might be that might be a correlation that would be worth following up.
That would be very interesting to see.
So,
shall we move on to censorship?
Oh, hell yeah!
All right, let's get us on some censorship. So, Pincolo has sent me this story because yesterday, apparently the Bloc Québécois is going to will back the internet control bill by the Liberal Party.
Imagine my shock.
So I'm gonna quickly go and share this so you guys can see it. And this is an opinion piece. I've read this author quite often, Brian Lilly from the Toronto Sun. He is an editorial author. So we're gonna so yes, the Bloc Québécois has decided that they will back Bill C-10, which is not good.
No, that's not good at all.
No, I don't want to share my entire screen. What are you doing, blind press? Dummy. Okay. So, just to recap for my American friends, Bill C-10 is what the Liberals are calling an update to the Broadcast Act that we have.
Yeah.
Because it is out of date and it does need to be updated to reflect the fact that we get most of our media from the internet. It does need to be updated. However, the Liberals, the way that they've worded this, it's so vague that it could be used to go after, basic Canadian content creators. They are saying that this is for platforms, not for people, but they removed an exemption clause for individuals and they refused to put it back. So, yeah.
Yes.
So this story here says, Bloc will back Trudeau's internet control bill. And this is put by Brian Lilly from yesterday from the Toronto Sun. So this says, barring an election or some last-ditch attempt to block it, the controversial Bill C-10 is destined to become law. The bill to regulate the internet using the CRTC, which is our version of the FCC, um, now has the backing of the governing Liberals as well as the Bloc Québécois and New Democrats.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. So the
So,
Conservatives are the only ones going, people.
because I'm reading a different story about the same thing. It says the Bloc Québécois is offering to work with the Liberals to shut down debate on C10.
Yeah.
And that's going to bring like Netflix and that lot
Yeah.
under Canada's regular broadcasting rules, I guess, in Canada, which that's gonna cost a lot of money.
Their story is that this is to push Canadian content to be viewed more and to force people like web giants like TikTok and YouTube and Instagram to pay into the Canadian Broadcast Fund.
Okay.
Because
this is a good
non-Canadian companies should totally be paying into the Canadian Broadcast Fund.
Because if you can't tax them in country, go find somebody in another country to go tax. You just got that tax thing on. You know what? Wow.
And Pink Hollow says, just a heads up, they're doing the same thing in the US and the UK, just under different guises. Yes, the UK is enacting a similar law, but they're going, their guise is, we're trying to protect the children.
I'm looking at this blurb. It says reaction to the bill has been far more positive in Quebec than it has in English Canada, where several former broadcaster regulators, as well as the academics, are very critical of the bill.
Yes.
And saying that it's going to harm free speech online. It's going to curtail free speech online. And, the other side is in Quebec's National Assembly. They said, no, it's a unanimous motion in support of C10.
Yeah.
So they're being very French, don't you think?
They are being very and now with their backing and the NDP's backing, this is just gonna soar through frickin' Parliament.
Wow. The central element of the debate is free expression. I believe that. I can see where this could, be a huge problem. What do you know about the Canadian Heritage Committee?
So the Canadian Heritage Committee is focused on, it's supposed to be focused on basically keeping Canadian culture alive, right? It's making sure that Canadian artists and whether it be musicians, whether it be visual artists or writers or film producers / directors / makers, that they are, protected under law and that they, receive funding for their, projects and
give us the next
channels.
Bryan Adams.
Oh, God. Now, the Canadian government has apologized on many occasions for Bryan Adams.
You also gave us Joni Mitchell and Gordon Lightfoot, so we'll call it square.
Yeah, we
Rush.
We gave you Rush. We gave you the Tragically. Well, you guys don't really know them Tragically Hip, but we
I do now. Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. They're awesome, aren't they?
They are very good. They really, truly are very listenable.
Yeah, they're freaking. I love those guys.
Yeah.
Econoline Crush from the 90s. We gave you that. Anyway.
I was raising kids in the 90s. It was almost a blur to me. My God, that was the heart of raising my children.
Yeah. So that's what the Canadian Heritage Committee is supposed to do. They're supposed to protect and uphold our
Well, they're doing
heritage
a
and
line by
culture.
line review of the bill, it says.
Yes.
Okay, which I guess is like a Canadian tradition.
It's so if there's any problem, if there's a party that has a problem with a bill,
Yeah.
they do what's called a clause by clause review, which is they
Okay.
go through it and they break it down and go, okay, what does this mean exactly? And is this allowed under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? Is this going to infringe on anybody's rights and freedoms?
Well, do you know? All right. On the other side of this, do you know anything about this guy, Michael Geist?
Michael Geist. I know the
He
name.
has been a prominent and vociferous critic of the bill. He's a law professor from the University of Ottawa, and he went before this Heritage Committee thing, and he shared an open letter from Canadian internet and technical professionals, and he went and talked to Justine Trudeau,
Mm-hmm.
and the letter called on Justine to stop harming the internet, the freedoms and aspiration of every individual in this country, and our knowledge economy through overreaching regulatory policies that will have significant yet unintended consequences on free and open internet in Canada. Justine began dancing and threatened to pierce his ear. Anyway, Bloc MP Martin Champoux, his real name,
That's an unfortunate name.
Champaux. That is pronounced
Even
shampoo.
even as a Frenchman, that's an unfortunate.
Ce n'est pas de quoi. Anyway, who sits on the Heritage Committee, said the time allocation is important because the Conservatives have obstructed the study of Bill C-10 during the past few weeks. And he says that because he's French.
They've been the ones wanting the study. You fucking liar! Holy shit!
Oh, yeah. I think old
Wow.
Shampoo's telling a lie there. But anyway, Shampoo says it is time to act, he said, adding that concerns over freedom of speech have now been put to rest by hearing from experts and a recent charter review. This is a tool we're willing to use in this particular case.
And he laughed and blew smoke rings over the
Yes,
heads
exactly.
of those.
Monsieur Shampoo! I wash my hair in your general direction.
Oh my
Anyway.
god. This is just so frustrating that like and anybody who says, this is a even if they go, this is a slippery slope. You're a conspiracy theorist.
Oh,
It's
don't be in such a leather, Mr. Shampoo. See what he did there? Anyway.
I did.
Uh,
Um so to
so
end
this piece is gonna pass, isn't it?
it
It's gonna
is.
pass.
It is. It's gonna pass.
Canada just it shoots itself in the foot and then it says that felt so good, I'm gonna do the other foot.
Yep. And what's scary is that this internet bill might just take down the channel of Mr. Polyev because, he's anti-government. Well, anti this government and anti its ideas. And as an illustration of this, I have a little video for us to end off the stream
Oh yeah.
called Wood Grows on Trees, Not Money.
I see what you
From our dear friend, Mr. Polyev. Yeah, wood grows on trees, but money doesn't, is what the title of the video is actually. So we're gonna quickly take a minute to look at this 2-minute video, because Pierre Polyev is of course a feature on this channel, because he's just awesome. I've never actually liked a conservative member of parliament as much as I do. As much as I like Polyev.
Yeah.
I've found a lot of the conservative members of parliament very out of touch.
Stuffy and
With
reactionary.
Yeah, reactionary, out of touch. kind of old, set in their
Yeah.
ways, old hat.
Anything new is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Polyev is very much of the new conservative,
The nouveau
where
guy.
the
Okay.
nouveau, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Here's our
this
boy.
here's our boy with
He-
money, or wood grows on trees.
He's holding
Money
a
doesn't.
plank of wood in his hands that says inflation. It's been burned in with like a laser engraver. So the word inflation has been burned into this 2x4 section that he's got in his hands. He's sitting on a park bench
That's awesome.
out in a park somewhere
That's amazing.
with grass all around. So
Let's see.
with that setup, hit play and let's listen to it.
In March 2020, a dollar bought you this.
He holds up a
A
dollar.
year later, that same
Holds up the
dollar
board.
bought you this.
He holds up a much smaller
So
board.
in 1 year, you went from getting 3 feet of 2x4 to 1 foot.
Oh,
The difference is inflation.
Oh,
Price of
okay.
everything is going up. Now, of course, lumber is an extreme example. Lumber prices have tripled and quadrupled depending on what product you use as your measurement.
yep.
But the bottom line is that it's an important example. Lumber, for example, goes into housing. And when lumber goes up, housing gets more expensive. It also goes into packaging of large freight and industrial buildings that house and produce other goods. So when those infrastructure pieces go up, everything that is made and stored in them goes up as well. And it's not just lumber that's rising. Of course, we've seen increases in energy prices of approximately 20%. We've seen transportation costs rise 7%. Goods are up 5%. And the year ahead, food prices like meat and bakery are expected to go up about 5% as well. This is the
Ow.
result of the fact that the Trudeau government is running monstrous deficits and paying for it with printed money. They can't tax and borrow enough to do all their spending, so they're printing and creating new cash to do it. More money, chasing the same number of goods and services, drives up the price of everything. That's why I predicted a year ago we'd have inflation, and we do. Now, this week, the Statistics Canada will come out with the new inflation numbers. And all the experts who said we'd have no inflation will change their tune and say, okay, there is some inflation, but it will be transitory. And by that, they don't mean that at some future point after the transitory period is gone, that prices will go back down, but that the increases will stop piling on. Well, we'll see that to believe it. But this from the same people who told you there would be no inflation in the first place. We see the proof in lumber. We see it in food, fuel, and housing. It is advantageous to you if you're very rich and your assets are going up in value, but it is very painful to you if you are not rich, because everything you buy becomes more expensive.
Yep.
That's why government should get its spending under control, live within its means, phase out the deficit over a reasonable period of time, and pay its bills with real money from real people so that we can protect the soundness of our money and protect the meaning of the dollar that you earn, the wages that you generate through your labor. That's what sound money means, and that's what we need to fight for in Canada's Parliament.
Da-da. And he's not wrong.
No.
How many times have you heard me just go on Minions about inflation?
Oh, tons of times.
We can't continue to print money, and he's absolutely right. And now Canada's about to reap the reward of all this. It's so avoidable. It's, politicians spend money so that they can get reelected. I mean, that's principally why they do it.
Yes.
They throw away so much money, it's astonishing, and they rob the taxpayers to do that. Money in politics really has become one of the principal things that is wrong, not just with politics, but with our countries.
Yeah.
And Canada is about to run up on the rocks with this. I think it's a very sad thing. I think Polyev has a great point, and I think he ought to be your next prime minister, quite frankly.
There are so many people in his comments that are like, I'm so pleased to be watching the videos of a future prime minister,
Yeah,
Polyev for prime minister,
from your lips to God's ear.
like, because he's the guy, like, and you can tell he doesn't want it, right? He's not, you can tell he's kind of happy representing his constituents where he is,
Yeah.
and, like, you kind of want the guy who's not hungry for the leadership. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Justine was always wrong for that job,
Yeah, yeah, he
and
was.
he was always too eager, and you could just see, this is not going to end well. And guess what? It didn't. But it needs to end, and you need to do better.
Well, and he's right. Like, we have had inflation. Like, gas prices are up,
Yeah,
food prices are up,
yeah,
rent for
yeah.
people, like, it's getting stupid. There are bidding wars on rental properties now
Good
in
Lord.
Ontario.
You've got some real problems that you need an adult to help you face.
Yeah.
And Justin Trudeau is not the guy.
No.
Sorry.
He's not even an adult.
Yeah, he's not even a guy as far as I'm concerned. He's Castro's weird baby, nuclear baby. I don't know. Something's wrong with
The
that.
weird nuclear baby. The weird radioactive offspring of.
Yeah, something very wrong. But anyway, this is fun to have spent the last hour with you, and it always goes by way too fast. But
It does.
thank you so much for having
You're
me on
welcome,
today.
and thank you for joining me. And if you would like to come back on Friday for another coffee stream, I will be back on Friday at 12. And catch me on Twitch tomorrow for Beat the Blind Girl. I may be doing the stream a little bit early because I have a doctor's appointment with the oldest at 3 o'clock. So I probably will be doing the stream a little bit earlier than 2 o'clock. But it'll be on Twitch, and the link to that is at the very top of the link tree. And of course, catch Skep and I tomorrow night on Minions of the Zoo with Prospero. And Saturday is Star Trek, and it's going to be Best Destruction. So
Space, the final destruction.
exactly.
All right.
Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And of course, thank you to Skep Talk for joining me as always. And
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday, guys.
Bye, everybody.